You know that your system is saying, stay out of the market right now, stay out of the market right now. But you have those itchy fingers. Learning how to trade. There's kind of two steps. One is learn what to wait for. Step number two, develop the discipline to actually wait.
Last Week in the Market is now Right of the Chart, the podcast for self-guided independent traders. Hey everybody, I'm Sean Vincent. I am the voice of Right of the Chart. Adam Sarhan, he's the brains behind Right of the Chart. If you've been listening to this show, you've known us as Last Week in the Market. We're changing our format a little bit. The original concept of Last Week in the Market was to look back at last week's market action and look for lessons for amped traders, Adam Sarhan's trading system, AMPD. But the fact is, all of your future profits are to the right of the chart, and we're going to change our format to talk about more timeless lessons for traders. We're going to start off those timeless lessons with a great fellow, a new friend of mine named Dennis Wilborn. Dennis is the founder of autopilottraders.com. He is a swing trader, and he shares a lot of the mindset that we talk about with Amped. I hope you enjoy our conversation today. Thanks for listening.
But before we get to all of that, remember that in the market, the past does not predict the future. No results are typical, and there is inherent risk when trading in the market. This podcast is for educational purposes and does not constitute financial advice.
It's August 9th, 2024, and here's what happened last week in the market. Listen, it's been a volatile time in the market, but the QQQ ended this week higher than where it started, and it found support at the 200-day moving average, which is a good sign. My trading window is still closed. I'm happy to be mostly in cash. We're going to talk today about how cash is a valid position when the market is volatile. However, I'm keeping my watch list curated. I'm ready to pounce if the market conditions move in the right direction. One thing I noticed, Dennis, from reading your bio, is that in your particular trading style, and I'll ask you a little bit more about that in a second, but it's about cluttering out a lot of the noise and figuring out what criteria you're going to use. There's just too many equities out there. And people, I think the first obstacle that a lot of new independent self-guided traders face is that there's this universe of things out there, and they don't know how to whittle that menu down to the value lunch menu of something that meets their criteria.
Agree with that
tell
wholeheartedly.
Tell me how you work with that in your trading style.
That's a great question, Sean. And I've always been one. Once I figured out what I was doing, in the trading world, because I started trading about 33 years ago, on active duty in the Navy, and back when you had dial up modems on your computer, and so I'd link into my computer and bing 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 bing, and dial up modem.
the static that
exactly. And I had to pay like about $150 a month for the privilege of downloading a year's worth of stock prices on, let's say, 20 tickers.
Okay.
That was it. I mean, so that started condensing me down to just looking for, smaller quantities anyway. But at the same time, though, as things improved, into the late 90s and as things got better, and you received the ability to get live data directly from your broker and all this type of thing, trading platforms, it made it so simple to hone in and watch lots of stuff. But that simplicity also came with a huge complication. The complication of too much data, too many variables, and huge confusion by the traders out there. I once coached a young lady. She was a psychologist, right?
Okay.
She's a psychologist, and she comes to me and she goes, Dennis, she goes, I can't make a decision to trade. because I'm watching all these stocks and I'm so afraid that if I choose one of the other ones will be the one that takes off. And so I said, well, no, show me how many stocks are you watching? She goes, 150.
Yes.
And I'm going, really? And I said, well, the first thing we need to do is we need to get you down to just watching about 20 stocks on a weekly basis. And this is a psychologist. She should know about FOMO, right?
Yeah.
You would think. And she comes back to me and goes, no, I can't do that. I go, well, can we get down to 50? No, I can't do that. And I go, why? She goes, because if I get down to 50 stocks, one of the stocks that I'm not watching is the one that's going to be taken off and I'll miss the trade. And I turned to her and I said, I said, Susan, you're missing the trades now. Let's make the leap here into, right. Get it cut down. And and after I retired from the Navy, I basically went to work I went to work as a engineer building towers and networks for wireless communication.
Sure,
right?
I remember when those were all
And
popping up everywhere.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things I was doing, but I was also wanting to trade, and I was working 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week, but I had this burning desire to learn and be able to trade, and so it became very clear right there, and that I needed a clear and simple approach to trading success. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started. That became our model. We clarify, we simplify, so you can multiply.
To put a point on what we were just talking about, narrowing down the information. I read Poor Charlie's Almanac. After he passed away recently, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime investing mm-hmm. partner, and he talked about how he and Warren, they established what things in a company they were looking for.
Yes.
And they sort of ignored everything else.
Yeah.
And anyone who's gotten a brand new charting software or something, there's all these indicators, all these buttons that you can push.
Yeah.
And you, as a trader, have to decide which ones to turn off and which ones you want to leave on so that you can watch it. And knowing, I love what you said there, though. What's hilarious is no matter how many stocks that person you're coaching was watching, there's always a risk that another one that she's not watching is going to break out, right? And so that fear is palpable. And I think one of the things that you have to do to be able to stay smart about the trading is just know that you're not going to catch everything, that things are going to happen without you. But know that if you're working with what you decide to put into your universe, right? And you're not going to be worried about other things unless they do something that makes them eligible for your universe and you replace it, right? And then also, like I know that like right now my trading window's closed. The market's too volatile. I'm not confident that the strength is there reliably. And my experience has been, like right now, it's been a crazy week. The stock market went way down. It seems to be bouncing a little bit. It's finding some resistance. I know with my system when the light turns green again. Mm-hmm. However, I've got this itch. I'm like, oh, I really do think it's more likely than not to go up from here. And I can get in early and make a few more points. But I've had to learn to trust the system, because the worst pain for me psychologically is when I ignore my own plan and get caught on the downside. Then I really feel bad about it, right?
Well, it's one of but that's one of the big fears that people have, though. They're fear they're going to miss out on something. But then some folks, we've been doing a real big study on the fears or the excuses people that traders make about the wisdom and the about using the psychology of money is what it was called.
Sure.
And we did a study on it. And we found that there are certain fears out there that the person would rather watch a loss happen than actually, and so they're more comfortable with taking the loss than they are in managing the trade. Because in managing the trade, there's this false belief that if I use the stop loss to get out,
Yes.
I've become a loser. I've that money is gone forever. But as long as the position's open, oh, there's a chance of it coming back, and they're down on their knees and oh dear Lord, please let it come back to where I bought it. And we've seen that
Yeah.
kind of traders a lot. And so,
Yes.
but you talk about green lights and red lights, and as far as systems,
Yeah.
yeah, my system basically took me out of the market. Started taking me out of the market about 3 weeks ago, and last week, uh, our my trailing stop on my last position I had took me out. Uh,
Yeah.
Small loss, like 3-4% loss on that particular position, but I'm flat the market right now, and I get it when you say you know that your system is saying stay out of the market right now, stay out of the market right now, but you have those itchy fingers where I go, oh, man, I
Yeah.
want to, I, and what do you think causes that? I mean, let me ask you a question. What do you think causes that kind of mindset to I have to be in the market?
Because the mindset, well, there is overcoming the other fear, which is the fear of losing money, right?
Yeah.
None of this makes any sense. That's actually the moral of the story, is none of the feelings I have about it make any sense, right? But if you're not in it,
Yeah.
you can't win it, right? So you got to be in it to win it.
Right.
And if you're afraid of losing money in the beginning of your trading career, then you know that any decision you make could end up with a loss, a managed
Yep.
loss with the type of trading that we do if you have put your protective stops in, but still a loss. And then you feel bad about that. And so there's a hesitation to make real decisions at first.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you realize, okay, I have to make this decision to win it, then there's a feeling that, am I being too conservative? Is my decision not to be in now
Right.
driven by fear also,
Right.
right? And so you're like, okay, and then um, I think the idea of cash as a position seems like people are taught that sometimes the worst decision is no decision,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't view being in cash as an affirmative decision when in fact often that's one of the hardest affirmative decisions to make, right, Dennis?
Yeah, yeah, I got it. Matter of fact, I'm going to make a note to myself so that Mike and I can talk about that on Trading Truths. Is
Nice.
is is the we debunk the myths in the market, and that's a great one. Thinking that aspect of, well, I can't be in cash. I have to be in a position to make money. Where the smartest move, and yeah, it's just false beliefs. So false beliefs that people, but
Yeah.
there's something that learning how to trade, there's kind of two steps. One
Yeah.
is learn what to wait for. Step number two, develop the discipline to actually wait.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, I
So,
know exactly what you're saying. Well, it makes me think of like you throw a party
yeah.
and you invite a lot of folks and you really hope that people will come, and then it's 10 minutes before the party started, before you told everyone when it was going to be and nobody's there yet, and you think to yourself, oh my god, this is going to be a failure, no one's going to come to my party.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then 1 minute before the party starts, the only person who came is your best friend, and you knew they were going to come. In fact, they probably helped you set up, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so then it comes, and now there's like two people here, but you already know in your heart that everyone knows to show up to a party late. Everyone's going to come 10, 15, and then an hour later the party's in full swing. And I told my son that because he was really nervous about something. He wanted to prepare, even though he'd done all the preparation. There was nothing he could do,
Right.
but he was so anxious for it. He wanted to hit the button. He wanted to make something happen, but there's nothing to happen now. And I
Right.
think I know exactly what you're saying with trading. Is like I was talking to our buddy Mike Lamott last week
Yeah.
about this offline, but back in April when the market had a little pullback,
Right.
I was looking at Oscar, OSCR,
Mm-hmm.
and it made a really nice cup and handle pattern. And I was
Right.
telling a friend of mine, said, "Oh, look, it's just making the handle now. This is probably going to break out." And he was like, "Are you going to buy it?" I'm like, "No." And he said, "Why not?" It's probably going to break out. I said, "Because right now my trading window's closed because the market's soft. I'm waiting for the market conditions to meet my criteria. And I've
Right.
just known enough times when I override my criteria and the market conditions are right, I'm so often stopped out and take a
Sure.
loss. And so even though I think this one's probably going to go well, that's a trade for someone else. It's not for me because it doesn't meet my specific criteria.
Right.
And it went up for a while. I would have done all right on that. Do I regret it? No, because again, like Charlie Munger says, who is a contract bridge player,
Right.
it actually doesn't matter if you win or lose a specific hand if you play the hand according to how you know the game is played,
Well,
right?
yeah, you bring something to mind for me, Sean, is that we've all seen, especially on social media, you've seen the Lamborghini guys.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
okay, and they get these 1,000 percent gains, or that's what they advertise. However, they don't talk very much about their body of work. And the body of work being, well, yeah, but what happened over your last 50 trades? What, that type of stuff that, and I'm very transparent. I let people know. I let people know in my book, okay, here's what I've done for the last 13 years, and we're doing it
Yeah,
again this year. Uh, and I'm very transparent about that. At the same time, I'm very clear about I expect to lose somewhere between 40 to 50% of the trades I make. They will be a losing trade.
yeah,
Now, what I didn't know about that when I first started was that that's part of doing business as a trader. And unfortunately, I would not use stop losses when I first started. I don't need no stinking stop losses. and,
yeah,
and I blew up two accounts. I mean, I blew up
yeah.
two, six-figure accounts, and my wife was not happy with me
No, no, no.
whatsoever. And so it was. I would say, if we were going to be doing advice to somebody, I would say, one, you need a plan. Two is in that plan, the very first rule, one of the very first rules should be I will always use stop losses regardless. I will have a hard stop and a trailing stop in there. That's going to protect me because that's what enables me to basically continue with my profession, which is trading.
Yeah. Well, so we don't give advice on the show, of course. So we always talk about considerations for self-guided
Okay.
independent trader. No, but I'm just saying that because that is actually just good advice in life. If
Oh, heavens,
you
yeah.
start and run a business, you know, my wife and I ran a business that had real trouble during the recession in 2008 because most of our clients were real estate developing companies and they were all going bankrupt and the banks weren't paying their loans and they couldn't pay their bills.
Yeah.
And one of the mistakes that we made that we learned from is that we carried a big payroll for too long. Were we were not adjusting in time and we
Yeah.
hadn't stopped and looked at how much are we willing to lose before we say this isn't working and we're going to preserve what we have
Sure.
left and move on. And I think a lot of marriages my marriage is great, but I've seen a lot of marriages last too long because they didn't know where their stop loss should be. Or a lot of things in life is if you don't know, if you're not
Yeah.
willing to say I'm not willing to risk more than this, then you end up risking more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and yeah, well, as far as marriages go, my wife and I, we just celebrated this past April our 50th year wedding anniversary. And so,
Amazing.
and it was not easy. The first 8 years of our marriage, I was one of those, I was one of those kind of guys. I was a total jerk. And
Well, you're a
uh,
jet pilot.
I was a jet pilot, and so I was living the life, and trying to act that way. And what's funny is wound up with some substance abuse and all that type of stuff, and wound up going to a rehab program, and that's what woke me up enough to say, okay, it's time, and that's what brought my wife and I back into a situation where we could start growing, but also we were growing in our faith.
Mm.
And I think, having a higher power, having believing in God, that helped us grow together because our focus was not so much on the faults of each other, but how we could improve and get better. and that actually just brought us together. Yeah, because both of us were healing and all that kind of stuff. And I know that has, I would like to say, well, that doesn't have anything to do with trading, but it does. It has a lot to do with trading in that it sets the course. I think it sets the course and also the mindset to persevere, to have patience, to get through the hard times, all kind of ingredients a person needs if they're going to succeed at trading.
Yeah. Well, so and we can't give specific financial advice, but we can give relationship advice, I believe. And
Okay.
if we're going to give marriage advice, what I took from what you said there is that once you're in a marriage, then what happens is your decisions become the decisions that are best for the marriage
Yeah.
and best together, and not just what are best
Yeah.
for you or fielding your desires. And if we want to translate that to our trading lifestyle, a couple things there. One is everyone who's successful, I believe, develops their own trading style
Mm-hmm.
that matches their goals with their lifestyle. My goals for my returns are not as aggressive as yours are, but it fits the business I'm
Okay.
running. Well, I
Okay.
mean, I want to make a lot, but I don't. Um, I found a trading style that produces results I'm happy with and fits my psychological style
Yeah.
and fits my life, and I'm comfortable with that. It serves the goals that I want from it.
But
Go
that's
ahead.
what's really, yeah. But that's what's really cool though, is that you've established what you need and have adjusted your mindset to say, okay, and to where you know that you're winning. You're winning on the process that you've put in place. And I
Yes.
think that is oftentimes with our so many folks who are trading out there, especially when they're first getting started, they don't know how to be a winner. They don't know how to be a winner with regards to, and they don't recognize that winning in trading is not so much how much money you make or winning trades. It's how well you execute your process.
Yeah.
That became my mark of winning. And once that happened, one, I started winning more, but also I was exceptionally more comfortable and my mindset was good. It was much better because I wasn't worried about what was transpiring in the market because I knew I'd put in my protections in order to take care of that.
All right, everybody, that's the podcast for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you listen to this, the audio version of this podcast, it's going to continue being where you normally find it. However, we're going to be starting a YouTube channel. We'll be posting this there. You can find those for now on findleadingstocks.com. We'll be back next week with more. Until then, as we always say, keep your losses small and let your winners fly.
What's an old guy like you doing trying to be on YouTube?